Now let's go ahead and declare some variables for each of the primitive types that we saw earlier. So now we have a couple more variables, and I've explicitly stated the type for each, even though it's really not necessary except for the case of the float and the double. The character would be the same as well. So I'll leave that one. I'm going to remove all the other ones really quick, but the rest of them I think Swift will infer just fine, and we can double check. So that's an int like we wanted. That's a string, and that's a bool. Now, what about these float and double types? They seem to represent pretty similar values. They're floating point numbers. But why would you use one over the other? Well, that comes down to an issue of precision and being able to most accurately represent a floating point number. Truth be told, computers actually have a pretty difficult time doing this. Usually computers even have special hardware dedicated just to floating point numbers. Typically, you'll want to use double instead of float because it can handle floating point numbers at a higher precision. But double isn't always better. In cases where speed may be more important than the accuracy of a floating point number, you may want to choose float instead. Next, let's try changing a variable's value. Let's change my jersey number. Since we've already declared my jersey number, we can just change it with this simple syntax here. We have the name of the variable, an equal sign, and then the new value that we want. So following this change, we can see that my jersey number went from being 5 here to 80 here. And we can keep doing this as many times as we'd like. However, when we change a variable's value, we must ensure that the new value is of the right type. So in this case, every single one of these are integers, so the compiler wouldn't complain. But let's try something a little bit different. In this case, we're going to try to change my jersey number to something that would typically be inferred as a string. And this is a problem. We can see that the compiler is complaining and it says we cannot assign a value of type string to a value of type int because my jersey number was declared as an integer. It specs an integer. And the reason this is a problem is because Swift is strongly typed, or we might say that Swift is a strongly typed language. This means that once a variable's type has been declared or set, it cannot change. So if we look at where my jersey number is declared, we know that it's an integer and it can't change. Therefore, it can't be set to the string here.